One.
Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us. This is the Aspen City Council regular meeting scheduled for. Like, was that really thunder? Wow, it's been like 2 years since I've heard
Every time you start a meeting,
That's right. This is a call to order of the Aspen City Council regular meeting for May 23rd, 2023. Could we have a roll call for attendance, please?
Councillor Doyle.
Here.
Councillor Guth.
Here.
Councillor Howenstein.
Present.
Councillor Rose.
Here.
Mayor Tory.
Here as well. Let's see, we're going to start our meeting off this evening with a proclamation. This is a proclamation of the city of Aspen, Colorado. Whereas our city is committed to recognizing that our strength depends on the safety and essential role of homes, buildings, and infrastructure play, both in everyday life and when disasters strike. And whereas Building Safety Month is sponsored by the International Code Council to remind the public about the critical role of our community's largely unknown protectors of public safety, our local code officials, some of them have joined us here this evening, thank you for being here, who assure us of safe, sustainable, and affordable buildings that are essential to our prosperity. And whereas it starts with you, the theme for Building Safety Month 2023 encourages us all to raise awareness about building safety on a personal, local, and global scale. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Mayor, City Council, and the citizens of Aspen hereby proclaim May 2023 as Building Safety Month and call upon the people of Aspen to recognize and participate in this special observance. I would also ask that you show our planning department and our building department as much appreciation as you can for the month. Thank you very much. A round of applause, perhaps. Thank you guys for all that you do. We appreciate you. That'll bring us to citizens' comments and petitions. If there's members of the public that wish to speak this evening and address council on issues that are not scheduled for a public hearing, we do ask that you limit your comments to about 3 minutes so that we can get everybody an equal opportunity to speak this evening. Are there members of the public that wish to speak tonight? Yes, sir. Hey, you set the bar high, so we'll see.
Wasn't a Ed Cross recentennial. Another poem I wrote, not AI, please, Tory. He was making a joke, but he caught me unawares on the mountain. I was like, AI? Anyway, this is called Fund the Fix. Good people of Aspen, we're just like you. Live up the hill with a hell of a view. Simple, a complex problem with a simple solution. Governmental resolution to fund the fix. A precedent may be needed. The property is restrictively deeded. We need to redesign, rebuild, and replace, or condemnation is what we'll face. A funding solution must be found before the buildings become unsafe, unsound. Elected officials, prove your worth. Keep Centennial standing on this earth. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, Ed. Other members of the public that wish to speak this evening, come on up. Please state your name for the record.
My presentation will be in prose. I hope that's okay. My name is Lynn Brooks. I'm running for Holy Cross Energy Board, and I'm here to introduce myself, tell you why I'm running, and to ask for your vote. Holy Cross service area has 3 districts, the Northern District, the Southern District, and the Western District. You here are in the Southern District. Candidates must live in their district to run for the seat, but the election is at large. I live in Avon in the Northern District, and I'm running for that Northern District seat, which is currently vacant, so there is no incumbent. My background is in natural science and engineering. I worked for 23 years for the Eagle River Water and Sanitation District, which is the drinking water provider and the wastewater treatment provider for the area from Vail to Walcott in Eagle County. I was the general manager of the Eagle River Water and Sanitation District for the last 11 years. During my tenure, I saw firsthand how climate trends were diminishing our streams and our community's water supplies. Because of this, Eagle River was at the forefront of piloting many innovative projects to reduce our carbon footprint. We take waste heat from the Avon wastewater treatment plant and use it to heat the Avon Town Hall and the pool water at the Avon Recreation Center. We piloted Holy Cross's peak time payback program at our Edwards wastewater treatment plant. This coordination saved total energy in the treatment process, but it also reduced Holy Cross's cost to purchase power on the spot market during system peaks, which saves all Holy Cross members money. I also have board service experience. Among other boards, I served on the Colorado Water Congress Board of Directors for over 10 years and as its board president for the last 2 years. Colorado Water Congress is a highly influential bipartisan voice in the Colorado legislature on water issues. During my tenure, during which I represented the Upper Colorado River Basin, the board expanded to include the full spectrum of water perspectives in Colorado, including farmers, ranchers, municipalities, environmental, recreational, and tribal interests. So in summary, I have over 2 decades of experience in managing a similar environmentally focused utility. I understand operations, rate setting, customer incentives, outreach, strategic planning, and public finance. I'm skilled in leadership in a diverse environment and in making sure that all perspectives are heard. I understand how water and energy can sometimes intersect and how they can be managed with both resources in mind to make sure we're making the best decisions for our water, our environment, our power needs, and our community. Please vote for me. I'll represent Holy Cross members and the environment effectively. Ballots were mailed last week to every Holy Cross member, so those should be coming into your mailbox in the next day or so if they haven't already. You can also vote by logging into your account on the Holy Cross website or through Smart Hub if you have that. And then Holy Cross will be holding an annual meeting on June 15th. The last day to vote through those other methods is June 13th. If you procrastinate and miss that date, you can go to the annual meeting at the CoA Performing Arts Center and join them for their annual meeting and vote there. So with that, happy to answer any questions.
Sure. Thank you so much for being here and introducing yourself to us and our community. It's a fantastic opportunity. When you introduced yourself, you talked about the different districts. You said something to the effect, this district does not have an incumbent. Is that what you said?
The seat that I'm running for does not have an incumbent. So that's the northern seat, which is Eagle County. There is also an open election for a seat in the Western District, which does have an incumbent, and there are 3 people running for that seat.
And how many are running for the district that you're running for?
5.
Thank you. How many are there in total on the board?
7.
Thank you so much. Any other questions from any other members of council?
Thanks for being here. Best of luck.
Yes, thank you.
Well, Lynn, with that, if there's no other questions for you, I just want to say that I support you in this. I appreciate the communications that you've sent to me. We have some mutual friends that have also recommended you highly, but after looking into your background and knowing that your focus is on clean energy, as well as our watershed and a holistic view of our natural environment, I just want to say publicly that I support you for this role, and I'll be voting for you.
Awesome. Thank you for that endorsement. And I will be leaving some flyers here. My website, if you're interested in more in why I'm running and my credentials, is lynnbrooks@holycross.com. That's Lynn with an I, L-I-N-N-N. So I will leave these here, and please vote, and please vote for
If
me.
you don't mind, you could just take those to the table right back there. That'd be perfect.
Will do.
Thank
Great.
you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Take care. Bye.
Other members of the public that wish to address council this evening? Yes, come on up.
Good evening, everyone. For the record, my name is Toni Kronberg, and I wanted to just say that you did a great job at the retreat last night, and that there were some really good questions that were asked. And Bill, I would like to compliment you on a lot of the tough questions that you did ask during the retreat. You heard from Eddie, and he gave you a poem. You heard from Lynn, and she gave you a prose. You're going to hear from me, and I'm going to give you a Cliff Note question. And that has to do with the lumberyard housing, not the ordinance, but tonight on the consent calendar, you're going to approve some contracts that deal with some money issues and the scope of work. I'd like to have a little bit more information about the transportation aspect of it and what the scope of work is. I believe it's Reso 84. And it says that the planning and zoning gave a condition of approval, and I think it's a regulatory condition, that at least the signal get brought up to at least a level C. So if it's not a level C, now that means it's not a passing grade. And then, so if we could have a little bit more explanation on that, like what that scope of work is going to be, what they're going to take a look at. And then secondly, if this contract is open to take a look at another multimodal transportation system that will probably be brought to you during the public hearing, I think it's on June 5th.
Yeah,
It hasn't been said yet? Okay, okay, I looked at the,
I think it's the 6th, but it's not set yet.
okay.
Yeah.
Because there's still a lot of questions, still a lot of work it seems like needs to be done. But, so, thank you so much, I appreciate it.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you.
Other members of the public that wish to address council this evening? I have a couple that are online, so we'll go to them. I have Mr. David Scruggs.
Yes, this is David Scruggs. Can
Hi,
you hear me?
David.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you.
I'm David Scruggs at 212 West Hopkins. Councilman and Mayor, I did send you an email earlier in the week. I've appeared before you several times and the HPC several times, requesting that the HPC meetings be broadcast as hybrid virtual meetings rather than just in person. I think this is important because the HPC makes decisions that affect the property rights of residents and non-residents. And I think that their process should be easily accessible to the public. I appeared before them on April 29th at their meeting and made that request again. And surprisingly, all members of the HPC said they supported unanimously my request. But of course, the caveat was they said that they could not do it. It was a staffing issue with the council and it would have to be addressed to the council. I told them that I would address the council at the next meeting. So, I learned a long time ago, you have to be patient. I've been patient. You have to persist. I've been persisting, but you eventually try to persevere. And I'm just asking you now, because all members of the HPC are saying they support my request, how do we accomplish getting hybrid virtual meetings for HPC, just like the one you're conducting, which I appreciate?
Thank you so much. Council, I'd say that, we can have a conversation about this. There's some more information that we need behind this, but, happy to have the conversation.
Yeah, I want to have that conversation. I think it's been presented to us as a question of IT and the difficulties in running a hybrid meeting. And I've been to a number of hybrid meetings that have had difficulties, and I'm aware that HPC members want to have it, and I'm sympathetic to Mr. Scruggs' request.
Thanks again, David.
Thank you.
I have online Laura Doherty.
Laura Doherty.
Hi there.
Hi. I must apologize. I did not intend to make public comment.
Yeah. I didn't think so, but your hand was raised. So, so I'm going to force you to, no, I'm just kidding. Thanks, Laura. We will see you later in the meeting.
Thank you.
I'll make one more call then for members of the public that wish to address council this evening on items not scheduled for public hearing. And And Laura, your hand is still up. With that, we'll close that and bring that back to council table. And that brings us to special orders of the day. And we start with council member and mayor comments. Council members, do you have any comments this evening? Sam?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say that I thought our council retreat went really well yesterday. I'm very encouraged by it. I thought the goals that we set were really wonderful, and I look forward to seeing some of them, or hopefully all of them, implemented in the next 2 years. And then on a sadder note, we lost a member of our community this week in a rafting incident in Glenwood Canyon. And on that note, I just wanted to remind everyone, working with the fire department, I feel like every year someone dies because they go into the Devil's Punch Bowl too early, specifically that spot, but be careful in all, especially as there's a high water year. But they say Devil's Punch Bowl, don't do it before the 4th of July, and this year might be even later than that, so I just preach caution when it comes to that. Thank you.
Thanks for that. John?
Yeah, I wanted to announce that yesterday, it was announced that the 7 western states have reached a historic deal to help save Colorado River water. 3 lower basin states have agreed to cut their use by 3 million, I think 3 million acre feet. At any rate, it's a step in the right direction, but it is a temporary fix. It's good news, though.
Bill?
Thanks, Tori. I want to echo Sam's comments, being my first council retreat or advance. I wasn't sure what to expect, but was very pleased with the process and the results, and excited to share the goals that we collectively established with the community. I'd like to echo David Scruggs' request for, at the very least, the ability for the public to comment remotely for council meetings, P&Z meetings, and HPC meetings. I think those are the 3 critical ones. Whether they can be fully hybrid or not, or whether they should be fully hybrid or not, is perhaps something that we discuss. But
Right.
I think that public comment for those that are not able to be in Aspen at meetings that may be very important to them, I think is the responsible thing for us to do. And then lastly, to the members of the Centennial ownership group that are here tonight, I wanted to let you know that recently we did discuss Centennial during executive session, and we requested, at least I requested.
If you, be careful of what you discuss in public from executive sessions.
Okay.
They're executive sessions for a reason. So just in your comments, just
Okay, I guess I'll just say, in order not to run afoul of anything without checking in advance, I'll just say that we did discuss Centennial, and we're working towards getting back to you with something.
Thank you.
Reasonable?
Thank you so much.
We're not ignoring you.
Any other comments?
That's it, thanks.
Thanks, Bill. Ward?
No comments.
All right, thank you for that. I have a couple of comments here. I want to echo the sentiments about the retreat yesterday. It was a very productive meeting in every respect. We said our retreat is a lot for prioritization of goals, and coming from that comes work plan and the like. But beyond that, it was a great opportunity for the 5 of us, along with management level staff, to get together and just talk and talk about how we feel about Aspen and where we're going and what our values and goals are. So it was a very productive meeting. I want to thank Ron LeBlanc, who was here facilitating, and of course, Sarah, I want to thank you for setting up that space for us to be a safe space and a great conversation yesterday. So thank you. I want to make a mention. There was a wonderful event for Bill Murphy this past weekend. I mentioned Bill and his passing has been it's been a few weeks or what have you, but I just wanted to mention again Bill Murphy and what a great community member, and it was great to see all his friends, family, and the like join together at Michola. It was a great event, and we remember Bill fondly forever. On top of that, I wanted to say congratulations to the Denver Nuggets.
They're going to the Super Bowl.
That's right, Ward. Word is still in recovery from the Avalanche's departure from the playoffs. But I just want to say congratulations to the Nuggets. You know, they are from Denver. They are from Colorado. They are representing us. It's interesting when you think about all the money that goes around with pro sports, but there is return from it. They are representing us, and this team is representing Colorado incredibly well. And that goes from the players that we have and how they represent themselves, but also how they represent our state. So anyway, congratulations to the Nuggets. We have like 8 days to wait till the start of the finals. And then, let's see, the last thing on my list that I wanted to talk about tonight was an observation. And I'm going to kind of look at Sarah because this is a conversation that's come up before, Sarah. But time is moving forward, and so are e-bikes. We have had conversations for the last 2 or 3 years regarding level 1, level 2, and level 3, what's going to be on our trails, what's going to be going up to Maroon Bells. But the truth is that these bikes are in our downtown core, and they are on our roads. They are a different animal. And I've long questioned our local policy that I think may be state policy as well about bikes rolling through stop signs and the like. But when you have a bike with a motor that is on it that can make it go 35, 40 miles an hour, I think we are going to need some sort of regulation or guidelines around this for public safety. And I don't know where to start that. I don't know if my fellow council members share any of this concern, but I wanted to bring it up because it's just something that here we go. We're coming into the summertime, and well, any day will come into the summertime. But I'm concerned about what we're seeing for usage. Yeah. Oh, Ward.
Sorry, I forgot something. Last Saturday was Arbor Day, and both John Doyle and I made some comments about the urban forest and urban canopy and the benefits of trees. It was a good turnout, and there are free trees to be given away, and I took one and planted it in my front yard and look forward to it growing quickly and fully. But I do have a black thumb. But I want to thank everybody that participated in that celebration of trees. So go out and hug a tree. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you for that. Sarah, I was asking you about e-bikes and some of the regulations that are going on, or lack of them that we have. What are we doing?
Sure. So we have some state statute that provides guidance. If you are interested in a conversation about e-bikes, I think bicycling in general, and rider responsibilities, I would encourage you to also to add a pedestrian conversation to that as well, because pedestrian and bicycle conflicts is something that we've continued to monitor in town, and we can provide that back if you would like to have that in a work session setting. I do think we're looking at some more infrastructure related changes to address some of these issues, but you're discussing some policy items, and we can bring that back to you, I think, after we've had a little bit of vetting internally, if you would like, if there's 3 of you that want to do that.
I'm interested in, and I'm also interested in geofencing. I know it's a reality and it can be done. So yeah, I think that there's some bicyclists going too quickly or too fast, and it's a health and safety concern, so I support having a further discussion.
Anybody else feel like this is an issue that they are concerned for the future on? No? I just want to have information from our police department about, what we're seeing. I mean, what I'm seeing is 30-mile-an-hour people running stop signs.
So what we will do is provide an informational memo to all of you, so you all have the same background information.
Great.
We're going to also provide in that some of the update on some of the things we've continued to work on since the last code change with the rental bike fleet operators, dealing with the preferred path from the core to the Maroon Bells. And also, I think there's some merit to some conversation about expectations around signage in certain locations as well. And we can share with you what some of those changes are that we're planning to make administratively to help keep people from being in the wrong place at the wrong time on their cycles.
Thank you.
Whatever
That'll be a
version of
start to the
wheels we're using.
conversation.
Thanks.
I appreciate it. Oh yeah, you ride one across town all the time, don't you?
I do, and the only reason I don't want to get into the weeds on that conversation, not because I don't sympathize with the issue, it's because I think we can make all the regulations we want. We're never going to be able to enforce them. I don't think there's going to be an appetite by the police department to enforce them, so I just, it doesn't seem like a path to get us anywhere. But I do understand the issue, to be clear.
All
So
right.
one of the things I've not had an opportunity to do is
It's so
talk with
defeatist for
our
me.
new chief
Sorry.
about how the biking fleet will be used in the police department, how much of that will be pedestrian versus vehicle versus cycle enforcement. So that's an easy conversation that I'm planning, including in the memo. I just need to get a little handle on staffing over there while I've been out of the office.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'd love to at least have the conversation. You know, to your comment, Bill, wearing seatbelts and not texting while driving are also laws, and enforcement is difficult, but you don't not do things because you don't think, not all the time do you not do things because you might have a lack of faith in enforcement, you know? So. Anyway, thank you. Next up, we're going to get to our city manager comments.
Nothing this evening, thank you.
And any quick board reports from anybody they want to share now? Yeah, John?
I have two. I don't think I shared my RWAPA meeting yet, have I? Anyway, a couple weeks ago, we had a III.A. Water and Power Summit, kind of a retreat, and there were several presentations given. One was on soil moisture, one on forest fires, but the most fascinating one, which I think a lot of you may have seen in the paper, was a presentation from Airborne Snow Observatories, a scientist named Jeff Deems, and they fly airplanes over the headwaters of major drainages to measure with LIDAR how much snowpack is available. The previous way we measured this was highly inadequate, and this gives us a much better picture of how much water is out there and how to prepare for that. Let's see, and some interesting facts. For every 1 degree rise in temperature, there is a loss of 3 to 9% in stream flow. We also talked about beaver reintroduction, because that can really help forest health and restoration of wetlands. Also had a core board meeting last week. Not a lot to report there, but the Coal Basin project is moving forward this summer. There will not be any flow tests, but there will be, again, using airplanes, flying over the area with methane sensors, and in July they'll be installing some portable methane sensors. August, drone maps will be created, and that will create a thermal map to know where the methane is and how fast it's escaping. That's about it. That project is moving forward, and that's all I have for now.
Thanks, Sean. Other board reports?
Yeah, from the RAFTA board. I'm just going to say after you left, there was more discussion of succession planning. The CEO gave his report and talked of travel to DC to meet with the congressional delegation to get grant money. Similar ridership numbers to pre-pandemic levels now at this point, and good staffing levels heading into the summer, and the RAFTA retreat is next month.
Appreciate that. So Sam and I attended the RAFTA meeting, which was on the 11th. I was there through a majority of it, and then Sam covered the end of it. So we talked about a couple of things, just some procurement code provisions, climate action plan, which RAFTA is working hard on and hopefully guiding the way on. We also had a discussion about the roadway in employee housing renovation project and got an update about that. What I can share with you is that everybody is very excited that RAFTA is going to have some 41 units, I believe, at the Roadway Inn, but it doesn't come without its price and without its headaches. So some of the retrofits that we are trying to do, we're trying to do them in the most progressive way that we can, but it is an old building and retrofits there are very difficult. Items like gas-fired boilers and the like are still slow to be changed over, and we're just having an update from them about what we can do to make the best improvements. Then, of course, we did touch on the retreat and some succession planning. Was that a hand?
As your representative for the community, City of Aspen, particularly on that Airport Advisory Board, I just wanted to make sure you're aware that a very key step was passed as a recommendation to the BOCC to accept the fleet mix. And this is the first step necessary in order to determine future things such as the airport layout plan by coming to some consensus around which type of air fleet will be coming in and out of the community in the next 10 to 15 years. That, again, was only a recommendation vote, and that is going to the BOCC, I believe, this month for final consideration for acceptance. That would be filed with the FAA. The most controversial thing in that is the growth, the rate of growth of air traffic. The Common Grounds recommendations had a growth factor of less than 1%. The FAA has been very clear that that is unacceptable for our airport, and so there's a modest 1.8% in the fleet forecasting in order to barely come into the FAA's required areas of growth. There's a, I know it's 1.8 to something, I forget what the upper limit is that they look for in these. But just to make you aware that those were key components of that study that were were recommended for approval by the BOCC last week. Thank you.
Can I ask you a question about that? So coming out of the airport advisory committees, I think it was a 0.8?
From the visioning committee.
From the visioning committee.
Visioning committee was 0.8. It was done with a recognition that it may not be acceptable to the FAA. There's been many conversations with FAA representatives about, is there a way that there's some opportunity to stay with that 0.8? It's been made really clear that at a 0.8 growth rate, the ability to secure federal funding for any of our airport improvements would be potentially in jeopardy. Not potentially, most likely in jeopardy would be the language the FAA used.
That is, that's terrible to hear. You're saying that the FAA just is making a requirement that this community should more than double its advice. Yeah, I think everybody knows what I'm saying here. That's absolutely terrible. I'm not surprised, but disappointed, I guess, that that's the way that the conversation's going, and that the county commissioners are. I mean, are we so beholden to federal monies that we're, we keep getting told that it's not about expansion, it's not about growth, it's about safety primarily, it's about better fleet in the future. But I mean, for the FAA to actually say that, no, you need to expect or plan for more growth takes this to a different level for me.
So there's two things to know is that the airport receives an entitled allotment each year from the federal government for maintenance, and that's provided regardless of these policies. However, that entitled allotment is not anywhere near sufficient for the infrastructure needs of both the terminal or the runway. If you're not aware, the annual paving is a patching through process when really the base of the runway at the payloads that are coming in is showing its age and its ability or inability to continue to do that. That's why we're having these multi-week shutdowns each May now to refurbish that into safe conditions for the traveling public. Whether you agree or disagree with the FAA, it's the reality of their expectations that if we're going to maintain an airport that has commercial services, that some of that has to be accommodated in the planning over the next 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, it's a shame, it's having, we already have stress and strain on our infrastructure and our carrying capacity, transit and traffic. And so, upping our growth allocation at the airport is, makes it difficult. And it makes it difficult to be in this position or this position at this table because we're trying to make community decisions going forward. And we have a lot of discussions about affordable housing and what our community trajectory is. And hearing that the airport is actually perhaps one of those growth generators is not good. Ward, do you have a comment?
Yeah, a question, the growth, is that in employments or passengers, or is that for commercial, is it for private aviation, or?
There's not a distinction between commercial and general aviation. In the lens of the FAA, when you accept federal money, the airport's available for all, and you cannot restrict one type of air traffic over another.
I understand that, but is that growth rate, is that employments? Because
I don't believe it's enplanements. I believe it's landings and takeoffs.
isn't that what
So it's not
employments are?
actually well, I want to make sure we're clear because not everyone knows enplanements' relationship to enplanements are only tracked for commercial aviation. They are not tracked for general aviation. That's why I'm not using that term.
Okay.
Because we're unable to identify the number of passengers that are flying on the general aviation aircraft.
Because if we go to larger vehicles in the future, that could require fewer commercial trips. So it's kind of, if you don't want growth and you have more large planes.
It was hotly debated last Thursday again.
Yeah.
If you want to go back and watch.
And I guess where these two conversations come together, Ward, is you're right. Larger plane, more passengers, fewer planes? No, that's just not, they're not related. That's not the goals of the airlines, and doesn't seem to be the goals of the management of the airport. John, do you have a comment here?
Yeah, two things that leap out to me is the recent housing bills that the state government tried to get passed largely failed because of the mountain community's loss of local control. Now, this particular issue with the airport seems like a loss of local control, just something I want to point out. And the other thing is, and I'm sure this has been asked before, but these employments from private aircraft, that seems like a really important number that we should know. That's a rhetorical question. I don't know where it goes, but it seems like an important number that should be known going forward in the airport planning.
Yeah, but that is a number that they will not get to, as far as I understand it. That's the policy of the base operator. That's the policy of that flight. There is no requirement for them to measure that, so. Yeah.
America based on growth.
Thank you. Thanks, Sarah. Appreciate the update. That'll bring us to our consent calendar. Give me a moment to take a sip of water. Tonight's consent calendar is resolution number 55, addendum to the City of Aspen ACRA Tourism Promotion Fund Agreement. It is resolution number 69, which is a contract for the Wheeler QSYS control system, phase 3. Resolution number 75, this is the Parks Office addition architectural contract. Resolution 77, the yellow brick stair replacement. Resolution 78, funding request for response. Resolution number 80, which is a construction manager general contractor for Maroon Creek Multi-Use Trail. Resolution number 82, a funding request for the Life Interfaith Team, Lift Up as it's known. Resolution number 83, construction manager advisor for Lumberyard Affordable Housing Development Project. Resolution number 84, additional design and planning services for Lumberyard Affordable Housing Development Project. And the draft minutes of April 11th and April 25th. Are there any items that council members wish to be pulled for further discussion this evening?
Yes, please, 83 and
83 and 84. Any others?
69, one question on that.
Okay, and 69 is the Wheeler Opera House. And any others?
Just a question on 82.
All right, we can do that as well. Let's go in order, and we'll start with number 69. This is the contract for the Wheeler. Is there a representative here that can speak with us from staff? Thank you. Hi, will you introduce yourself so everybody knows who you are?
Yes, so my name is Alex Feely. I'm the business manager at the Wheeler Opera House.
Craig Moxon, production manager at the Wheeler Opera House.
Nice to see you. Thanks for being here tonight.
I almost feel bad for pulling this one by just an educational question of wondering about the financing of this project, whether it was coming from the old money of the Wheeler RET or the new money. That was the only thing I had.
Old.
And that was all I had. Thank you.
Well done, you guys. Absolutely.
Next time I'll send an email. I'm sorry.
No.
Good for the record.
Hey, it's wonderful to see them here. I appreciate it, Sam. Thanks. Let's move on to 82. This is the funding request for Lift Up.
Yeah, my questions on that were, it's coming from the tobacco tax, and my recollection of tobacco tax, it had to be existing programs, not new programs, and I question if the tobacco tax can fund capital projects.
There is not a limitation for it to be existing programs. The way that the ordinance and the ballot question were written, it specifies health and human services and addiction support services specifically there. And so that is possible. You are also able to use capital as long as it's in line with that. Use it for a capital donation as long as it's in line with that approved vote or purpose.
During the works, I had a question about capital campaigns. Normally, people have about 50% of their pledges or their target reached before they go out looking for additional funding. And I'm wondering now where Lift Up is on that goal, and if we're making a pledge solely for the capital program, and do we hand over the money now, or what's?
That is up to council's discretion, that you can amend the resolution to put any additional conditions on the release of funds, but we're fortunate to have someone here who can update you specifically on the campaign. Ivan, if you wouldn't mind coming up and introducing yourself and providing an update for them.
Good evening. My name's Ivan Jackson. Thank you for having me back here again tonight. I'm the Executive Director of Lift Up. We have undertaken a $2 million capital campaign to purchase a facility, warehouse, pantry, thrift store in Glenwood Springs. And the capital campaign kicked off on the 1st of April this year. And we've probably secured currently about 10 to 15% of that total amount that we're looking at. We're currently going through working with our high net worth donors, local government entities, and local community partners. And our goal is, before we make it a public capital campaign, is to have 60 to 70% of the total money raised. We anticipate to have that within the next 6 months.
And we're at 10 or 15% now?
Yes, sir.
I think Ward brings up a great point that perhaps we phrase it as a pledge that isn't funded until the campaign until the call for funding, or I'm not sure what the nonprofit term is, but I don't think we want to write the check now until we know the project's happening.
And that would be consistent for us in these kind of, to have a clawback for failure to perform, just like any other project. So if you have a target in mind, you could certainly share that with us tonight. Would you want that amended in the resolution, Jim, or just be verbal instruction?
I think it probably should be in the resolution, but this conversation, as I recall, we discussed that issue, and I was trying to pull up the resolution, refresh my, it's a $50,000 pledge.
And for the record, I support Lift Up, and I think 2 units that you're looking to purchase in the commercial, or the kitchen and pantry. I support all the reasons for doing this. It's just, I want to make sure that, in my notes, I put 50% of the target had been reached before we release it, but release the funds, but to have it as a pledge for, to count towards your.
Yeah, likewise.
You certainly can amend the resolution that's proposed, just to add a function as to where, what that is specifically. However, you can also direct the city manager to, with specific terms, because the resolution does call for her to complete the request as she deems appropriate pursuant to this resolution. So if you direct her as to how she's going to do that, I think she would be bound to do it in that manner.
Yeah, I think the reso also.
In the resolution, it's up to you.
I think the reso also says that it's solely for the capital.
Correct.
Yes.
It does, it does say that.
Is there a reason why you're only questioning Lift Up and not Response, who's also on this?
Well, Response had a big funding head start. They had like a lot more money in the kitty to start with.
Okay, just clarifying, thank you.
I would suggest that whatever we sort of determine is appropriate here is probably what we do for any of these capital.
That's why I was just asking to do it across the board.
I support 82, but I would like it to be, to give the city manager instructions that it is to be released when the capital campaign reaches 50% of its target.
It's a good place to start.
You could move to adopt this resolution separately from the rest of the consent agenda and add that as a phrase at the end.
Okay, then can we pull the approval of 82 on a separate vote, please?
Yep. Let's see. You know, the language in here authorizes the city manager to complete the request as she deems appropriate pursuant to the resolution. So, I mean, what I'm hearing here is maybe there's language going forward in resolutions of this type.
There'll be a donation agreement that we will execute
Yeah.
with this dollar amount, that we can put it in a letter agreement and specify those terms. So we'll provide a written,
Yeah.
if you choose to approve this, there'll be a letter that comes from me with the pledge, whatever this condition may or may not be. This is typical administrative process for us, so that they're aware of how to make the request to release the funds and what kind of documentation they would have to submit to us to get the funds released. So on the administrative side, I'm not worried. I'm just hearing about 50% of the 2 million goal is what's necessary to release the funds.
I'm good with that, to give you the latitude to do it.
Do you understand the conversation that we're just having, and how does it impact you, or is there anything that you would like to share with us?
I understand the restrictions that have been put on that. My take on this is that once we have reached that $1 million, which is the 50% of the target, then we would provide Sarah with the information to meet with your requirements, and then you would release the funds to us.
But the pledge is firm and remains, of course.
I understand that. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you for your work.
My pleasure. Thank you.
That'll bring us to resolutions 83 and 84. Yeah, 83, I mean, they're separate, so 83.
I don't so much have specific questions here, but what I wanted to ask council was if they thought it would be a good idea to table these until we have the conversation
Right.
on ordinance number 10. I do think that they are very much related, and our general approach on ordinance 10 might inform what we want to do on 83 and 84. So no specific questions on those resolutions, but that would be my request of my other council members.
Okay. Questions?
I just wanted to echo Bill's comment, that I didn't have a question for 83 specifically. On 84, I just add, because 83 is, if I read correctly, didn't seem like it had much risk involved financially, because it seemed like it was gonna be tied to whatever ordinance 10 was. 84 did seem like it potentially did have some risk financially, and that's the one that, if there were either one, that's the one I thought that at least should be pulled and tabled until ordinance 10 is dealt with.
Okay. Can we have some comment from you guys regarding 83? Specifically, Sam is saying this is really about selecting a construction manager, but there's no contractual obligation or that type of thing. Can you just speak to 83?
Sure. My name's Chris Everson, Affordable Housing Development Project Manager for the City of Aspen. Just FYI, 83 and 84 are related, partly related, which can create a little bit of confusion, so I'll try to clarify that where possible. Item 83 is a request to approve the contract with Dynamic Program Management. Typically, when the city performs an implementation project, we often hire this type of firm to act as an owner's rep. In this case, a CMA, Construction Manager, as advisor. And correct, the approval of this project is meant to provide support to the design of the implementation of the Phase 0 infrastructure project for the Lumberyard Affordable Housing Project. It does not obligate the city to disperse funds. In the event that we wanted to table the work itself, you could potentially approve this contract, and we could simply not start using those hours until we need them. Otherwise, you could table this contract until such a time when the project has its approval in its entirety. So it's totally up to you. The rationale is provided in your memo as to the timing, why we're trying to add these services now. The City Council, to this point, has requested repeatedly that we begin construction in 2024. That starts for the Lumberyard project with the Phase 0 demolition, recycling, and infrastructure portion of the project. But again, it's your decision as to whether or not you want to approve now and let us table those hours, or if you want to table the entirety of the contract.
Thank you. And then 84, can you speak a little bit more directly to 84?
Sure. Similarly, as it relates to the Lumberyard Affordable Housing Development Project, we are starting the first reading of, as you know, the ordinance today. And so we are in the middle of the entitlements process. We did plan the planning effort for the entitlements process to have two parts. We have used our services up to this point with Cushing Terrell for the planning aspect of their contract. And the first portion of this add services, and I failed to itemize them well in your memo, but it would be 6A, is the continuation through the remainder of the entitlements process, which we do see as necessary, being that we are in the middle of that process today. Items B and C are related to the design of the infrastructure project and the design of the demolition and recycling of the Phase 0 infrastructure portion of the project. However, if you read the description of those specific sections, it does say that there is a component of getting through design development on those components. So I think if you, let's say, wanted to table this contract in some way, I don't think items B and C would entirely go away. I would probably have to go revise this and resubmit it, because I think usually what happens is, as part of recording the plan development process, we're required to record a certain amount of the infrastructure documentation. And in this case, we would need to bring the infrastructure documentation up to at least the DD level so that we can be sure that it's feasible to implement. If you look at item, and again, it's the fourth item down, that would be 6D, additional design development, that's coordination with Resolution 83. So there's some cross-pollination going on here. So that may or may not stay in. Again, approval of this contract does not obligate us to disperse funds, does not obligate us to take this work all the way through where the contract would allow us to. Staff could use its discretion to, for example, only go through DD and only go through the recording of the plan development, and then come back in some way and let you know after the project has reached its full approval and the plan development is recorded, we could then go on to use the hours to create the implementation documents. Another way of tabling this work would be for me to go ahead and revise and resubmit this only through the end of the plan development process. So again, you could do that a couple of different ways.
Thank you. Council members, comments, questions?
Cushing Terrell has been a good partner throughout this process. Is this a new vendor for 83?
It's a new vendor for this project, not a vendor that's been in front of the council throughout the process of the past 3 years of design. They are also a new firm for us to work with in terms of owner's rep services, project management support. However, the individuals on the team all came from a prior organization with whom we've worked with in the past, so we know them, we know that they're reliable. They helped us, for example, on the public-private partnership projects at 488 Castle Creek, Main Street, and Park Circle. So we're well acquainted with the individuals on the team.
So these were like owners or reps for Aspen Housing Partners projects?
Yeah, in fact, they were actually the city's owners reps because we were providing oversight to that developer.
Okay.
I didn't, it was, Bill pulled this, so I want to hear your comments.
But I think I made my comments, happy to reiterate.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just think that I would recommend that we table 83 and 84 until we have the ordinance 10 discussion. I understand they're for different services, totally clear to me, understand that, but I do think that they are intimately tied to further direction on the lumberyard, and I don't think that it makes a lot of sense to approve additional hiring of additional consultants until we have sort of a broader discussion of next steps on lumberyard in general. So I'm not saying I'm opposed to either of these contracts at this time. I just think it might make sense to table this till the next meeting, till we have some further discussion on 10.
Okay. Jim, how can I move these two items down on our agenda?
Well, you would have authority as mayor and council to just pass them for now and move them later in the agenda. There's nothing inappropriate about that. I don't think that would even take a motion. It's just an agenda amendment. You can do it by motion, of course, and put them on the end of the agenda. What Bill was suggesting, I believe, was that they be continued or tabled until the next meeting, I think he said. So it's up to...
No, just till later this meeting.
Well, it's first reading. Either one is acceptable to me.
Okay.
At the very least, I would suggest until we have our discussion on first reading of 10. Yeah.
Okay. All right, then.
Then I would just suggest for formality's sake, just somebody move to amend the agenda to place 83 and 84 after first reading of ordinances.
I'm happy to make that motion to move resolutions 83 and 84 to be read again after the first reading of ordinances, or to be discussed again.
Seconded.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Could we have a roll call vote for the moving of 83 and 84 till after ordinance 10, or let's call it action items, perhaps?
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Tory?
Yes. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
With that, there is an amendment to Resolution 82. So why don't we do it this way? I could take a motion for the remainder. Can I do it myself? Thanks. I would make a motion to approve the consent calendar that will include resolution number 55, resolution number 69, resolution number 75, resolution 77, resolution 78, resolution 80, and the draft minutes of April 11th and April 25th.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Could we have a roll call for the amended consent calendar?
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Tory?
I'm a yes. And then Ward, if you would mind making a motion for resolution number 82 with your amendment.
Okay, I thought we had left that to discretion for the administrative, to Sarah's discretion.
Oh, okay. I thought you wanted language to be included that was something regarding 50%.
Well, like I said, you could do it either way, and I did think the conversation had kind of gotten to the point of just council direction, and Sarah had indicated how she would handle it, so.
Okay, then if that's okay with you, then I'm sorry I left that off of my motion, so I need a motion for.
I move to adopt resolution 82.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Not seeing any. Can we have a roll call vote for resolution 82?
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Tory?
Yes. All right, that'll bring us to notice of call up. This is a P&Z approval for 600 East Main Commercial Design Review.
Good evening, City Council, Mayor Tory. I haven't presented yet for Councilman Guth and Councilman Rose. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
So 600 East Main Street, Concept 600 building, just a few blocks down Main Street there. They went before P&Z on May 2nd for commercial design review. They were doing material changes to the first floor commercial level, and they were replacing some T111 paneling for some fiber cement panels. P&Z voted 3-1 to approve the material changes with a condition on the size of the panels. Staff recommends the council makes no motion and upholds the P&Z decision. Happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Yeah, I have a question. Is there any increase in R value of the siding? The cement siding seemed to have a lower R value than like vinyl or wood.
I'm not entirely sure on the R value piece of that. Ben, thank you for coming up and assisting me with this.
I was told there'd be no R value.
Just to clarify, I think, and I actually did this at my own home probably 15 years ago, but you can put the new cement panels over the top of the T111, so it's actually probably a minimal, but probably some increased R value.
Okay, I have one more question. Why did one of the members vote against it?
There was no reasoning given explicitly, so we're not sure.
Okay.
I have a procedural question, but not a comment, sort of about this.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
You're good? Okay.
Yeah, so does every single approval by P&Z come before council for a potential call-up, regardless of the scope or size? Or?
Just for the record, Ben Anderson, Community Development. There's two call-up processes that come in front of council, one for HPC, anytime there's kind of a minor or major HPC approval, and then commercial design review similarly has a call-up provision. So if P&Z, so a lot of times, just because of the overlap of the historic districts with our commercial areas, you'll often have a HPC approval that also has commercial design approval associated with it. P&Z does not see standalone commercial design reviews all that frequently, primarily just because of the location of those properties outside of the district, outside of Main Street. There are some, kind of in the neighborhood commercial C1, sometimes those projects will be P&Z only, but two types of cases, HP and commercial design review, would come to council for call-up.
Thanks for the explanation. I have no issues with it.
I have no desire to call it out.
And Jeffrey Barnhill for the record, city planner.
All right, I don't see a motion for call-up, so there will be none. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That'll bring us down to our first reading of ordinances. Ordinance number 10. So,
All right, good
there
evening.
is a lot to ordinance 10. And I'm wondering about your presentation and about what you are prepared to be giving to us, because I know there's going to be some questions, and I don't want to waste anybody's time.
Great segue. Good evening. My name is Kevin, for the record, planner with community development. I'm glad you mentioned that, Mayor Tory. So tonight is not a public hearing. This is first reading, which basically means I'm simply introducing the item. I'm going to give a very brief presentation, just conceptually describing what the proposal entails. And then I'm happy to answer any council questions write council questions down and answer those at second reading, which we have scheduled for June 6th. So for the purposes of this evening, we're requesting approval of first reading to set a public hearing date of June 6th. So I would recommend that council try to avoid any sort of discussion on this item this evening, because tonight has not been noticed as a public notice. And we'll just simply write down questions and get those addressed at the next hearing. So with that, I'll go ahead and just share my screen real quick here. All right. So as I said, tonight is first reading, and the proposal here, I'm sure council members are aware, this is the Lumberyard Affordable Housing Project. The proposal is to develop 100% affordable housing, and it triggers several reviews, which are listed up here and in the memo as well. These reviews include major public project amendments to the zone district map, plan development, both project review and detailed review, major subdivision, transportation and parking, and growth management review. Before we have gotten to this point, I think it's worth just briefly mentioning the amount of work that's gone into this project. You saw Chris Everson up here just a few minutes ago. He and his consultant team have been working on this for several years. They've come to council multiple times, work sessions. They've gone to the public and have had open houses and surveys, and all of that has come together to inform the proposal that's before council this evening. So at the next hearing, Chris is going to talk about that much more in depth and talk about the process that went into that. But I think it's worth mentioning that sort of how we got here for this evening. We took this to P&Z over the last couple of months. We had a couple hearings on it, and P&Z members had a robust discussion, and they recommended approval of the project with the conditions included in P&Z Resolution number 4, series of 2023, and that is included in your packet for this evening as Exhibit A.11. So if council members are interested in reading that, I recommend taking a look at that resolution. A lot of that is carried forward into the ordinance that's on the table as well, with a few changes which we can discuss at the second reading. So I'm just going to jump into a little bit of background on the site and just kind of help refresh everyone's memory on what we're talking about here. So here's the site location. It's located on the eastern side of the Aspen Business Center, just on the edge of city limits. The site consists of 4 parcels. The first is the mini storage facility. The next two are the lumberyard facilities, and the last one is what we call Lot 1D, or also known as the triangle parcel. So the mini storage and lumberyard parcels are improved with those uses. They're located in the service, commercial, industrial zone district, and Lot 1D is a vacant parcel. It's taken several years for the city to purchase these lands and assemble them the way we want them for this project. But this is the subject of where the proposal is going to be.
Kevin, can I interrupt you real quickly? And I'm sorry to do this, but
No
you
worries.
referred to an A.11,
Yes,
which was what document?
that was the Planning and Zoning Commission resolution that was recommended.
I go from
Am I-
A9 to B1.
Am I missing? Yeah, I don't,
It's not provided as an
it,
attachment.
it's not provided as an
Agenda.
attachment, but anyway, it's not provided as attachment.
It's not an attachment.
It is not. We go to A.9.
B.1.
Okay. We're having some issues with
It's
uploading
okay.
these to
I'm
Granicus,
just
but
make-
for the next hearing, we'll make sure those are in there. I appreciate you bringing that to my attention.
Yeah, let's see.
Within the memo, it references A10 and A11, but they are not
Okay.
on the agenda at all.
We'll make sure those are in there for the public hearing.
Thanks for that.
My apologies. If you refer to the ordinance on the table, much of the language from the resolution is carried forward into the ordinance with a couple of conditions that P&Z added. And I do reference those conditions in the memo. So if you want to see the difference between the resolution and the ordinance, I recommend taking a look at the third page of the memo. Page 3 of the memo, I have the two conditions that P&Z added, and there's a little bit of staff discussion in there. So that's really the difference between the resolution and the ordinance. So that might be informative to council.
That is page 205 of your packet.
Ah, yes. Forgot the packet's very, very long. So jumping back here, the site location, these 4 parcels, it's 11.3 acres. And Lot 1D is the only vacant parcel. It's undeveloped. This was subdivided by council last fall. And that was sort of the last piece of the puzzle, if you will, to get the land assembled to accommodate this project. So the proposal here is a total of 277 affordable housing units. They're a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units in 3 separate buildings. So there's building 1, building 2, and building 3. Building 1 and building 2 are planned to be 100% rental units, and building 3 is planned to be rental for up to 10 years. With the caveat that those units will be condominiumized and sold to APSHA qualified tenants at some point within the first 10 years of coming online. So that's sort of the proposal in a nutshell. You can see there's open space around these buildings as well. And here's the table. This is included in the memo as well. That kind of breaks down the unit mix proposed in each of the buildings. The applicant is requesting 10 years of vested rights to get this development fully built out. So I'll briefly touch on that. The first phase is phase 0. The applicant hopes to start this next year based on the direction given by council. This seems like a realistic timeline. And this is basically infrastructure improvements and demolition of existing structures. So the infrastructure improvements include, street grading, building a new intersection at the junction of Highway 82 and the lumberyard. Right now, it's an uncontrolled intersection. They're planning to build a stoplight there, and then putting in all the utilities, dry utilities, water and sewer will also be built at this phase. The next phase, phase 1, is associated with building 1. That's estimated to be between 2026 and 2027. That also includes subgrade parking that is below the footprint of the building. Phase 2 is associated with building 2. That's 2028 to 2029. Also includes parking improvements. And then phase 3 is 2030 to 2031. And again, includes the associated parking with Building 3. The applicant also, the way we phrase this in the ordinance is that the phases can be combined as needed, as resources allow. So this timeline doesn't necessarily need to be sort of planned out in this manner, but this was sort of what was the most prudent timeline that the applicant has set forth. And you'll notice phase 3 is at this point anticipated to finish in 2031, so there's a couple of years that provide a buffer in case unforeseen circumstances arise, as they're requesting 10 years of vesting. So here's a rendering of sort of what's proposed. You can, a very rough idea of how this would be perceived from Highway 82. You'll notice just off the bat here, there are a substantial number of solar panels on the roof of each building, as well as the, see if I can share if my mouse goes up there. You can see my mouse. These structures here are carports for the on-street covered parking, and there are solar panels on these roofs as well. It's worth mentioning that because one piece of direction that has been given by council is to really hone in on making this a sustainable project. And so with these panels and with the building design, the applicant anticipates 75% of the energy generated by this project will be from the solar panels, which is consistent with the Aspen area community plan of being a sustainable community. So
You said 75% of the energy will be produced by this. You mean 75% of the energy that it's going to be consumed will be supplied by the solar panels?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Yep. So that was worth mentioning just because they have such a substantial presence in the rendering.
And just since we're on that, can I ask you a question? I know there's two kind of systems. There's maybe a closed system where you have your own on-site battery, and then is this like a Holy Cross? Would we tie in to Holy Cross and?
I'll wait and let the applicant answer that when they present.
Yeah, I think that would be a question, if you don't mind, we'll write that down and we can speak to that more at the next hearing. Is that?
Yeah, great.
Is that okay?
Thank you.
Okay. To clarify, you're wanting to know about the.
Yeah, I'm super
25%.
excited about the solar.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering what type of system is it? There's talk about tying into the grid and Holy Cross or that kind of thing. I just didn't know if this, because when you say, you're saying that 75% of the power that should be consumed here should be generated by the solar power. So I'm just wondering how does that match up? That's kind of what I'm asking.
Got it. And it sounds like you were also interested in understanding the battery capacity as well. You mentioned that.
If that's what we're doing, I don't understand.
Got it.
I don't understand, and I want to understand more because I support.
Yeah, I had a question. I thought during one of these work sessions or somewhere along the line, the last 3 years or so, that we talked about this being on Holy Cross or on the city of Aspen. Which is it? I was thinking that city of Aspen grid was going to be extended. I can't remember, though.
I think you're right.
Sounds good. Yeah, we'll bring clarity to all of that.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, cool. Let's see here. So yeah, that's basically kind of what I wanted to show for this evening. Again, pretty high level. At the next hearing, the applicant team and myself, we're each going to make obviously much more robust presentations. The applicant team is going to focus on the public process that went into this. They'll be able to answer a lot of the technical questions, specifically about the solar panels and other questions that council might have. And I'm going to talk about how this relates to the review criteria pursuant to Title 26 of the Land Use Code. So council can look forward to hearing that at the next hearing. But again, for the purposes of tonight, we're requesting that council approve Ordinance 10 on first reading to set a public hearing date for June 6th. And with that, if council members have more questions, again, we're more than happy to write those down and we'll get those addressed at the next hearing.
Thank you for that. Any questions at this time, guys?
Is that it for all the presentation, or is?
That's all we got.
Okay.
Yeah, but just questions on, I know there's a larger conversation, but any questions from his presentation?
Not from the presentation.
Okay, great, thanks.
No.
Any? All right.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
So our path forward here, obviously, moving to approve ordinance number 10 and set the public hearing so that we can have further discussion and involve the public in this for their comments. I know that, Bill, you have some questions that you wanted to suggest some resolution. So why don't you go ahead and share your feelings or your thoughts, and then we'll see what we can work towards.
Sure. Firstly, I dislike the sentiment that discussion is not encouraged at first reading. Thank you for all your work on this, by the way. That's not personal. I just feel that it is appropriate and should be encouraged, not discouraged.
Hang on one second, because that's a kind of a procedural thing. Jim, public comment on first readings?
I didn't say public comment. I didn't say anything about
Oh.
Comment's not appropriate.
Oh, I thought you were
our
saying.
discussion.
Oh, I thought, well, what do you, we're having oh, you're saying that you thought he was saying, we
I
should not
believe
discuss
Kevin
it?
discouraged discussion amongst us about this topic. I may have misheard, but I think you said questions only.
To clarify, council members, you can obviously, chat as you will, but to keep the public noticing kind of true and not become sideways from that, it's often prudent to focus the discussion at second reading so that people who were noticed either by a poster or by the mail out or by the newspaper can hear the conversation that council is having and be part of that. And so that's the reason for that. But certainly council members, you're welcome to have a discussion if you want. I don't want to stop anyone from doing that.
Yeah.
Again, I disagree. This was a noticed public meeting, and anyone's welcome to watch this meeting or be present. That doesn't mean we have to take public comment, but I think discussion should be happening at first readings, and I will continue to discuss and make comments at first readings throughout my time on council. Again, nothing personal. Thank you for all your hard work on this. I think the lumberyard is a good project. I'm supportive of the lumberyard project. I understand the critical need for this project in our community. I believe that this is probably our last large housing opportunity in Aspen. There are more units proposed here than in the Centennial, the rental side of Centennial. This is not a small, insignificant project, and it requires a lot of careful analysis by a lot of different people and partners and members of the community. I'm given great pause by the fact that we have not addressed how to execute upon this project. We have not figured out how we're going to build it, with whom we're going to partner, and how we're going to pay for it. I have a lot of trouble cementing entitlements on a project without addressing that question, at least schematically. And here's why I have a hard time cementing those entitlements. I believe those entitlements make the next steps inflexible for us and hamstring us in options that we might want to pursue that might benefit the community, might benefit the project. It might result, more specifically, it might limit our ability to deliver this project all in one phase and in less than 10 years. It might limit our ability to deliver this project more cost effectively and therefore free up financial resources to address other needs for housing in our community, like expiring deed restrictions. To be clear, I don't think that we should stop progress on this project. I don't think that not cementing the entitlements means we are not going to progress on this project and refine this project. I don't believe that we have a gun to our head to approve the entitlements now and start construction right away. I think we're entering a deflationary, or have already entered a deflationary construction period, and that should give us a little breathing room to think about this and make sure that we get these entitlements correct. My proposal would be to find a private market partner and allow them to propose any revisions to the intent of the project that you guys have come up with. I think, again, putting the entitlements in place now will limit our options in those partnerships, and I think is a mistake for the potential success and execution of the lumberyard. And so I request that other councilors consider that by approving these entitlements now, we may be really limiting our options moving forward with a private market partner, which I believe is the best path to execution of this project. Thanks.
Can you say more about, what do you mean by private market partner?
It can mean a lot of things, but as Chris and Kevin know well, we executed 3 projects with Aspen Housing Partners in Aspen recently. I have inquired a lot about all 3 of these projects from all sides of the table, and I think they were some of the most successful developments, affordable housing developments ever executed in Aspen. So that's one example of what a private.
So you're open to whatever.
I'm open to whatever.
Okay.
I think that a public-private partnership could take all sorts of forms, and we shouldn't seek just one form. We should be very open to what that might look like.
I appreciate it. That helps me with my questions. So their council members, and depending on your support for these entitlements or not, does not necessarily necessitate what we do here on first reading. The purpose of first reading is to get what we have in front of us for discussion, for public hearing. It offers the opportunity for changes to the ordinance. It offers the opportunity for rescheduling of the second reading or approval of ordinance 10. So my question to you is about tonight, so that we move through tonight's agenda. It is suggested that we pass this on first reading to get to the public hearing, which will open it up to the discussion that you just had, to say to your fellow council members and hear from the public and say, hey guys, you know what? Let's not approve these entitlements tonight. So on first reading, our ability to move this forward for 2 weeks stays along the path of your request. So I just want to, I want to move us forward in the best way. The other options here are to, I'm trying to think, there's the opportunity to continue first reading, which probably doesn't get us the ability to have the discussions that you want to have and maybe take actions in the direction that you're talking about.
I'd like to hear the answer to that.
I
understand why that would be.
So anyway, I just want to figure out path forward. And I haven't checked with other council members yet about the tact of it.
I think the one sentence I'd add, if I could, Tori, is that this as a whole feels like we're putting the cart before the horse. And I don't think that we should philosophically continue on the path that we've been on. Not to say that the work that's been produced isn't good, but I don't think that as a next step, this is the appropriate next step. I think identifying a partner whose core competency is development, unlike the city of Aspen, which is wonderful in many things, but I don't think development is one of its strongest suits. I think we should find the development partner and then talk about the specific entitlements.
Okay, appreciate it. Ward.
Yeah, I have a lot of things I want to discuss, but procedurally, I'd like to move that we read ordinance 10 on first reading.
I'll second that.
Discussion.
We have a motion and a second for reading ordinance 10. Is there any further discussion? Can we have a roll call vote for reading of ordinance 10?
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Tory?
Yes?
I've just been watching so much.
It's going to be a long one. Bear with me. Ordinance number 10, series of 2023. An ordinance of the Aspen City Council approving a major public project review, amendments to the official zone district map, a plan development, project review and detailed review, major subdivision, parking and transportation review, and growth management review for Lot 3, communications subdivision according to the plat thereof recorded October 3rd, 1988, and plat book 21 at page 34, commonly known as 105 Woodward Lane, AKA the mini storage facility, lots 1 and 2, block 1, Aspen Airport Business Center, filing number 1, according to the plat therefore recorded in plat book 7 at page 79, less that strip of land conveyed in quit claim deed recorded September 25th, 1984, in book 474 at page 1, commonly known as 38005 CO-82, aka the Lumberyard Builders First Source property, and Lot 1D, final subdivision plat of Lot 1A, Burlingame Ranch, according to the final plat thereof recorded January 31st, 2023, and plat book 135 at page 25, aka the triangle parcel.
Thank you, Nicole.
You should read proclamations from now on. Yes. Thank you, Nicole.
Books on tape is calling.
Okay, so Board, I'll take some questions or comments from you, but I have one maybe that I should ask first. So my question would be, as I look around the table at our management, part of what Bill is saying is, you know, he's looking for public partnership, but my question to you is, what would that look like for us? Without, you know, I wouldn't want to issue an RFP for a development partner because it's not really, that's not the aim. That's not what he's suggesting. But he's interested in opening it up to the possibilities. And my question to you are, my feeling is that this project hasn't been worked on under secrecy or cover of night. We've had years of meetings about this. The development community, whoever they are or what have you, should be aware of this kind of a project. Do you guys ever, has anybody contacted you from private firms to say, we're interested in what you're doing there and we might have do you get those kind of inquiries?
The short answer is yes. Staff has had dozens of conversations with potential vendors. I would suggest that we should not eliminate the potential of an RFP process because that is what's required by your procurement code without a specific action by council. However, our intentions, and we have been fostering relationship building around with individuals who we would encourage to take a look at that RFP when it's published and see if it fits their business their business plan to provide a performa back as a partner. So if you recall how we got here is that the council, in weighing the role of the city, felt that to provide clarity to a development partner, that there needed to be a pretty robust vision with detail, I would even suggest, before that RFP went out. And that was a conversation that happened probably 2-ish years ago, maybe 3, I think, when we had it. And so certainly we'll do this at council's pleasure. The direction we had received from the prior council was to move forward with this and bring it through the public process as a major public project, which would conclude with a PD. Now, the second thing is to remember, our code does allow PD amendments, both major and minor, some with administrative approval, some obviously that would need to go back through the process, which, we would certainly not discourage that activity if a development partner came up with suggestions that make a lot of sense for the goals that the community set out with this project.
I would
Thank you.
add to that the idea of having to amend an entitlement and go through this process again could be very discouraging to a development partner because it's expensive and time-consuming and risky. And at that point, they're going to have to invest significant dollars of their own. And at least if I was in those shoes, and I'm by no means suggesting that I'm qualified to do a project like this, but if I was in those shoes, that would be a very intimidating and risky point of participation for me.
And would you say that the place that we're at now, what we've gotten designed, gotten worked on, what's been incorporated into this project to this point, do you think that we're at a point now where if we put out an RFP that you would get the responses
It's a great question.
more appropriately now?
Yeah, I think that what we have is more than adequate. It really conveys the intent of what we'd like to see there. I think it demonstrates generally what can be done on the site and what the community has, for the most part, been accepting of. It's not finalized yet, but there's been a lot of community input. I think it's a really great point, a great stopping point to go out and identify a partner. I think moving any further past this would be a mistake, but I think that the work that's been done is good work and is a great point to get someone else. We are at a great point to get someone else involved.
And when you say moving forward past this point, the entitlements, because the entitlements put us in a position that limits the opportunities for a development partnership, perhaps. The entitlements, as you were just saying, if there were substantive changes, would require reprocessing, if you will. So, okay, understand. I'm clear?
You are.
Thanks. Thank you.
I mean, on that, what's the downside of going down the path that Bill is talking about? Like, will we just delay a little bit to see if that's a smart decision, or are we doing something catastrophic to the path that we're on? I ask that because I feel like there is not a downside to see what is out there.
There's no obligation.
The lack of entitlements will make us ineligible for several grant funding opportunities that are currently, right? So new ones may come up, but currently, right, we recently, we were just on a call with DOLA last week. Lack of entitlements was a reason why we were not successful in a process, one of the reasons given to us. So again, shouldn't be a driving factor, but if that's a conversation the council wants to have, I would rather go back with staff and give you pros and con lists so that you can have that information to assist you in your decision-making about how you'd like to go forward.
Do we have an indication of how much, in a best case scenario, how much those grants could represent of the $450, $500 million project proposed?
It will depend. It depends on whether the council wishes to use tax credits in the project. And that is an undecided point, and that will be determined when you decide your category mix. I think the other piece for it is that the state has been making some unusual changes using general fund dollars to support housing. Those are highly competitive dollars, and right now we're unable to compete for them is really what it comes down to with the current status that we're in. I don't know if the state is intending to release additional dollars. We've been pressuring them to. When we talk about what the scale of these projects cost in the mountain interstate region. The last thing is that we are following the federal dollars that are currently in debate, that we need to find out what happens in Congress over the next few weeks to have a sense what will happen with spending cuts or not happening and how that affects HUD. So I apologize. I wish I could crystal ball it and I knew it because it'd make me feel a lot better, but that's just not how the system's working right now.
It's not significant in a major way, and my experience has been that LIHTC, low-income housing tax credit dollars, are not really relevant to our community because our area median incomes are too high. So I'm not, again, I don't think that should be a driving factor towards rushing this.
Certainly, that is a discussion for you amongst the council to decide. You have not given us direction on some of those items related to the financing. However, if you want, we can bring back additional information in second reading. I know Chris has got a lot more detail he can provide you because recall, council approved us hiring an individual who works in this space specifically to assist us with this project and navigating those requirements.
Sam, yes, the downside is a delay. We're not talking about a small delay, though. You know, we're talking, probably set us back a year, at the least. Set us back a year, even if we got a partner that was like, you know what, I just want to partner with you on what you've already gotten worked on. If it's a partner that comes in and say, hey, I want to change this, that delay could be anywhere from a year to several. 4, 5, whatever. So yeah, there's some downside, but most of it is the delay of it. Ward, comments, questions, suggestions?
Yeah, I have a lot of comments here. I think I'll preface it all by saying I want to reserve as much flexibility as possible in the entitlement phase as I think it's important that we get the rezoning and the entitlements, but before I go further on specific questions, I want to give a little bit of a background on this because we've gotten to a point, Bill, with through public hearings, through a lot of meetings over the years where we've decided on purchasing self-storage unit, increasing the size of the property that we can build on. We've had discussions about how many units, what's the density going to be. And every step of the way here, Bill, and I appreciate you bringing these up because these are questions in the public-private partnerships are questions that had all along. But the process that we've gone through as a community and as a council for many years has been to design what we want. And we're at a point now where what's before us has a lot of things locked in. And I want to question whether we need to have that many design features locked in order to get the zoning and entitlements. So, but I think if you were 2 years ago to issue an RFP or 3 years ago, here's a plot of land, what can you do for it and how much is it going to cost? They would have had to gone through the same process as we've gone through. You know, we may not have been presented with the options that we have now. I like the number of buildings. We had a number of options on how we were going to lay out. So the city has been the developer. Us as a council and as a community has been a developer of this project in that we're locking in the number of units. And even on this, we're locking in, I think, a lot of things, number of units. I think we're locking in EMIs, a lot of things that I think I would rather see us have the approval for the development, the entitlements, but to have as much flexibility as possible for unit mix and going forward as we can change this going forward. Phase 1 or phase 0, it kind of locks you into what the layout of the whole property is going to be. Phases 1, 2, and 3 are building of the buildings, and those are going to be coming in down the line. But the city has really been, they've been doing the conceptual, the structural, and our schematic drawings, and we've moved along a long ways. Where I think if a private developer was coming in and presenting us with options, we wouldn't be at this point. But we are at this point, and it's I think been through a lot of work by a lot of people, and a lot of money spent to get consultants and designers and architects, and a lot of public discussion about density, about the number of units, about the mix, about the layout, about solar, about sound, about air quality, all of the things that are brought up here and that P&Z issued concerns about. We're still interested in all of those. And so it's been a long path that we are at now, and how, if we have the entitlements, if we can get public-private, get partners, somebody like Aspen Housing Partners, can we do separate partners for different phases? A lot of questions to be answered, and I think it's, and even in the packet here, it supplies some of the things that I had been pressing for, hoping for, that we could have private investors that would have right of first use or rental. So I think there's some flexibility in here, but I want to see this proceed. I don't want to delay it, but I want it to proceed with as much flexibility as possible. And there are a number of specific questions that I can hold off until second reading. But the cliff notes on it is I want to approve this, I want to move it forward. I want to get entitlements. I don't think we can get funding or a third party or a private party interested in it unless we have the ability to actually build it. And as it's zoned now, we don't have that ability. We have a lot of plans, but we have to put the approvals and the entitlements underneath what the plan that we've been working 3 or more, is it over 3 years on? Been working over 3 years to get where we are. So I'm in favor of moving forward, but again, with as much flexibility, I don't know that we should be locking in what type of siding we have and the number of units and the mix and the AMI, but a lot of these elements, if we can leave those flexible and have the entitlements for the land underneath, I would be in favor of that more.
I totally appreciate all the things that you said, and again, I do think that there's a lot of great work that's been done, Ward. I appreciate the desire to move the project forward, but if you are genuinely interested in flexibility and not being locked into things that may end up becoming obstacles, then I think we should table the entitlements and identify which of those things we are comfortable locking in with a partner and which things we are not. That would be my suggestion.
I think that perhaps that's something that should be brought up at second reading. We don't have to have just one second reading. We can have multiple second readings, and second readings are public hearings, and during that we can have a lot more robust discussion. So I would like to see this proceed, but I want to hear what the rest of council says, and I think that there are a lot of specifics that can be addressed in a public hearing and a second reading that's actually noticed on this for June 6th.
Thank you, Ward. Good comments. John, do you want to weigh in at all right now, or?
Yeah, I do have a couple questions, but I'll be happy to ask them at second reading. Thanks.
Okay, any comments for right now?
Just want to say I think we should move this forward. We still have flexibility moving this forward.
All right. Sam?
Yeah, thank you. I keep asking myself which is worse, granting the entitlements and going down a path without flexibility, or doing what Bill suggested and trying to go down a path that at least explores that option. And I kind of wonder if we can go down Bill's path in the short term just to explore it in the next few weeks up until like the next meeting, at least, to like, you know, understand it better rather than delay that. And I'm not talking about delaying years. I just really want to know more about what Bill is talking about, especially because I call him the resident expert on this subject, being the only real estate developer on this council, talking about things that I know very little about. So I appreciate that. if, depending on where this is going, I do have a bunch of questions written down, and I kind of wonder if it's appropriate to do on first reading, because I thought first reading was for answering these questions, so when the second reading does come back, at least they can be addressed. So.
That is correct. So if you have questions for first reading that you would like answered for second reading, then yes, please do.
Okay.
Yeah, go right ahead.
All
And
right,
then we'll come back to your other point.
In no particular order, I was wondering, reading the packet from the public comment, is the stormwater drainage issues that we're talking about in public comment, are they more or less taken care of? That was in the packet, and they were talking about like drainage towards, I think, towards the ABC. There was 2 business owners there that were wondering that. A really simple question, and just this is a good clarification. Will the deed restrictions be in perpetuity? Because I think that needs to be like known as we talk about expiring deed restrictions, that these will be forever.
Do not attach them to the death of any one of us.
No, yeah, I wanted to make that very clear, honestly.
Thank you, Sam.
But if you do.
Don't put a target on our.
Thank you.
Otherwise, I'm going to buy a bulletproof vest.
I was wondering, sort of related to this topic, I was told today that in 2012, 13% of workers we have live in free market housing, and I was wondering if it was known what percentage we're at now. Because a lot of disgruntlement I hear from people is we build more housing, but we get the same result, and I sort of wonder if that's because we're losing free market housing and replacing that with APSHA housing, and whether the lumberyard will end up being a net benefit rather than the feeling of prior sentiment towards that.
So I just want to clarify your question. You're asking what percentage of workers currently live in free market housing?
Yeah.
Is that your question?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure I understand what your question was.
Yeah, that was my question, and maybe verifying the fact that I heard that it was 13% in 2012. I heard that from some person, but I don't know their source. I was wondering other things like, you know, as we look towards the future, is the complex prepared for a potential electric vehicle future? We have 435 parking spaces. We might move towards like EVs in the future. We're talking like 20 years from now. It'd be really bad foresight to set this complex up and then have it not be able to allow for electric vehicles.
That's baked in.
What?
That's baked in.
Okay. I feel like it always needs to be thought about as far as like, that's one question, but I also would just like pose to everyone else, like what else is gonna happen in the future that maybe this housing complex should see? Other questions I have are talking, and I have it here, the city of Aspen reserves the right to reserve development partnerships with area employers. So I'm not sure this is a question, more of a comment, but I do sort of feel like there should be some housing prioritization for things like RAFTA bus drivers. If we are living in a community that does not have enough bus services and the buses are coming every 30 minutes to this complex that's gonna have 500 more people and 435 more parking spaces, it just does not sound like a place where I would be incentivized to take the bus. It sounds way more convenient to drive. And for that reason, I think childcare providers, RAFTA bus drivers, you know, sort of what the city's doing with prioritization of essential employees for us that need to be within 30 minutes of driving distance. I really do think that it shouldn't be so taboo that for essential functions of our community, that I think some prioritization should take place for certain, at least industries. Because I know we open a whole can of worms with people being tied to their jobs, but it really matters for this community that the buses run on time, especially because we're talking about the whole ecosystem. Let's see, more things I had for next time. Transportation was a big deal for the P&Z, and it was a big deal for me as far as looking at it. I don't know anything about cost and not effectiveness, but implementation. But on the surface, I feel like an underpass would be a great addition to this project to eliminate the need for a stoplight. Reading all the stats that I have, it sounds like 435 parking spaces at the ABC with an additional stoplight. I just went to the article about the Brush Creek Park and Ride, and they're expanding that from 200 to 400 paved parking spaces. And putting that into context makes me think that is a lot of extra cars on the road as we deal with the fact that they're on the other side of the Castle Creek Bridge, causing many more traffic delays and woes potentially that face our community. And that was our number one goal in the council retreat, was transportation mobility. So I would like to think of the underpass, but any other transportation solutions that could be implemented to make this less impactful on our community in a negative way that's already plagues our community in such a negative way.
Sorry, one
thank
clarifying question. When you say underpass, are you referring to a pedestrian underpass or a vehicle?
No.
Vehicle underpass, yeah.
Vehicle.
Yeah, once again, I don't know.
Onto 82.
I don't know the realistic nature, but I do think of the underpass that goes to III.A from Highway 82, and it's just, especially at that section of town, I just do think it is very important that traffic flows, and any delay there will affect us all the way down into downtown Aspen. So
I'm sorry, it's underpass at III.A on 82?
that was my example of where there is an underpass, and
Where is there a road underpass?
you get off 82 on Stage Road, and that's how you go to III.A.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the underpass I think of. I'm not sure where there are other ones, but that's sort of, if it can be implemented, I think that would be a great touch to this project, especially for the community, especially as we add growth of people to the community. What else do I got? Sorry. I was sort of, this is to a lesser degree, but I was wondering what impact this community will have by not having the lumberyard there, and what addition or negative impacts that might create. I'm not sure if it makes sense. I think I was told by you, Chris, that the lumberyard's planning on leaving at the end of this year regardless of what happens. Okay, so that's not necessarily in our peer review, but I was kind of wondering that. What else? Sorry. Oh, and then just for the public and my sake, I just sort of wanted the entitlements to be explained to me in layman's terms. What are entitlements? And I think that's it for now. I rest my case, yeah.
Your case is rested.
Yeah.
Kevin, do you need any clarifying on his requests?
I think I got it all, actually. I appreciate those questions.
Okay.
We'll work with the applicant and make sure we provide some substantial responses, and hopefully we can get those answered.
Okay.
I don't know what impact that's.
All right. I am, I'm in a place here of support for moving this forward. I want to make it clear that I support this project moving forward. I have outstanding questions as well, things that I can probably deal with at second reading, but I do think there should be some changes to this project. So I'm open to some new thinking, new ideas here as this moves forward. So I'm just kind of caught in a place of wanting to, take the best steps forward. I'm interested in a comment period. I'm interested, are there partnerships? We've talked about not maybe the necessity, but the desire for partnerships in this. And I'm wondering is there a mechanism, is there a process? If it's the RFP process, how can we, at this juncture, how can we reach out? How could we say, are there interested parties that this timing is where they would want to get involved? And that's my real question. Do entitlements limit our potential for the partnerships that are going to get this project to completion? That's really where I'm at with it. I respect the comment. We've had these discussions. We've had these talks about partnerships, but also our ability getting this to someplace where a partnership and going out to find those partners makes sense. And maybe we're there right now. I don't know, because I don't, I don't know. I don't know the large residential complex builder community. And I don't know what they're, I don't know. As I said before, my comment was, this is no secret. We've been talking about this forever. If somebody saw a great opportunity here, I would think that they would be in touch with us or something of the like. So anyway, thank you for coming up to the table. That's my question is how can we concurrently run forward by moving forward with first reading, get to second reading, get these questions answered, other questions answered, explore opportunity for the appropriate timing for looking for partnership, et cetera, et cetera. Philip.
Thank you, Mayor Tory and Council. For the record, Philip Supino, Community Development Director. I'm only going to answer part of your question, and that's because I think there's an important procedural distinction to be made here. Many of the questions and positions taken by Council this evening are actually directed at the applicant. The applicant, who is ultimately the one presenting the development proposal to City Council for quasi-judicial review. And Kevin, in his position as the planning staff member, is supporting that quasi-judicial review relative to the standards in Title 26 in the Land Use Code. And so many of the positions and questions brought up this evening ought to be, I think, addressed by the applicant. And in response to some of those questions, the applicant may choose to do any number of things with their application, which could be decide to advance the application to second reading. They could decide that they want to make changes to the application and request a continuation. Applicants are free to withdraw applications. I'm not advocating for any of these things. I'm just suggesting that much of the feedback will be processed by Chris and his team, and they may decide to respond to that in some way. The position that Kevin and the planning staff find ourselves in is asking council whether or not you want to simply advance the conversation to the next procedural stage. Councilmember Guth made a suggestion earlier that planning staff was not interested in, or I forget the exact language, but that we were not supporting discussion this evening. And I just want to make really clear that by city charter in the land use code, discussion and quasi-judicial reviews is to be conducted in a public hearing, by and large, right? Obviously, council has some discretion there. That's the only, that's all we were suggesting in terms of how we wanted to structure the hearing. And so I think I'll speak for Kevin and say that staff's position with respect to the review still stands. If council would like answers to those questions as they relate to the land use code, a second reading is the appropriate venue in which to answer those questions, particularly because, as I think Kevin said really well, that is the noticed hearing at which the public is provided the opportunity to observe and participate. But that's only part of the answer. Part of the answer lies with the applicant side and how they want to choose to respond to some of that feedback. Is that helpful?
It is.
Great. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Question?
No question.
Okay. I think that in everything that has been brought up by council members that we should move to the public hearing. I don't, and I would have concerns if I thought that this was going to tie our hands for any action in the future, but I don't think it does. I think it actually forwards us to the critical conversations that we need to have. So I think that we should move to second reading. But I'm wondering if there's anything between now and second reading. I guess that would be an information request from me is about an RFP for partnership. I would want information as we move to second reading about this suggestion of putting out the idea to the developer universe would like information about that.
To clarify, to make sure we come back with the right response to your question. I hear your question as the following. You want to know that if the project gets entitlements, whatever those might be, the city would subsequently issue an RFP and seek developers to develop this at that point? Is that sort of what you're suggesting in your question?
We will provide an update of what the status is of seeking, of issuing that RFP. I believe that is what the question is, and then what that has looked like. Not irregardless of the sequence of when the RFP is issued compared to when entitlements are granted. He's separating the two.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Sir, I will work with you to answer that question.
I don't understand the question.
He was wondering about the RFP process going out after second reading potential with entitlements versus without, because I'm saying without, right?
Oh, I understand that.
I'm saying without, and that's what Sarah was clarifying, but.
Okay.
So, I may be dense, but I still don't see what the question is.
So you are suggesting that we are at a place with the designs and the intention of this, that now would be an appropriate place to say, is there a potential public-private partnership that it is to our benefit to explore now, because with entitlements, we may be limiting who or what can be done. And I'm asking, hey, is that out there? You know, I would assume that as we are moving down this, and with the incredible media coverage and accurate reporting that we're going to have.
Tomorrow's paper. I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
So that you know, even from this discussion, we are going to be opening this door, this conversation, and so that's what I was saying.
Okay, so to make sure I understand, everyone understands, I suppose, is the question, are there opportunities for partnership at this juncture, or?
No, the question is, what does the RFP process look like in order to get the answer to that?
Now I got it.
Yeah.
Which will happen at second reading, right?
Which will come back to us at second reading to see if that's, you know, to see what that involves, what that process is, right? Because we would do it through our RFP process. We would not, you know, it's not like putting an ad in the classifieds and saying, hey, we're thinking about building this. So there's process to it.
And I would suggest, my suggestion would be, when we're thinking about the RFP process for this specifically, that we are intentionally vague on some parameters, a lot of parameters.
We will pick that back up if we get this, to second reading. That is part of the conversation that we will potentially be having.
Thanks for clarifying.
Yep. All right, we have questions answered here. If there is a council member that wishes to make a motion on ordinance 10.
Your Honor, I'd move that we approve ordinance 10 on first reading.
I'll second.
Further discussion?
I do, and I agree with Bill. I want to know how we can preserve the most flexibility in the land use in this entitlement and the rezoning.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that, Ward. Any other? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote for approval of ordinance number 10 on first reading?
Substitution for Nicole Henning is batting James R. True.
Let the record reflect.
Councilor Doyle.
Yes.
Councilor Guth.
No.
Councilor Hallenstein.
Yes.
Councilor Rose.
Yes.
Councilor Torrey.
I'm a yes.
Torrey.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you. And that is set for June 6th.
Got it.
That will bring us on our agenda back to items 83 and 84, resolutions 83 and 84. series of 2023. We have moved these from the consent calendar down into our action items because they were somewhat related to the conversation that we just had. The first one, resolution number 83. This is the construction manager as advisor for Lumberyard Affordable Housing Development Project. Guys, if you read your memo, we had some discussion about this earlier. You understand the ramifications of this. Any conversation at this time?
I think I would say now, after having discussed this and understanding the perspectives of, or at least some of the perspectives of those at this table, I would ask, is there any work that we would need these consultants for between now and second reading? Of ordinance 10, to be specific.
Right. No. I mean, I'm answering you. I'm just answering you. Yes.
Does it seem logical to table it until the next meeting?
I mean, that's what he's.
No, I just want to say it since he said no.
Tori wants to get to the finish line.
Okay, so on 83, can you talk to us really quickly about the ramification, briefly, as you did already? We got that, but just for clarity, if we were to continue this item till the 6th even, right? Can you talk to us about that, Chris?
Yeah, the resolution number 83 is the construction manager as advisor scope of work. So to get through some amount of the entitlements process or potentially through the entitlements process, we don't necessarily need the work of the construction manager as advisor. Depending on how much change you're looking at, I think if the project proceeds as we've planned to this point, maybe not. But if you're looking to make significant changes, we may need to enlist the use of a construction manager as advisor to get to where you need to get to. So I think between now and June 6th, I would suggest that probably not. However, if the outcome at January 6th is such that there's significant changes, then we may need some revised version of this scope of work or this very scope of work.
Okay. Is there any other questions or comments at this time?
I have a comment on 84. Are we bifurcating these, doing one at a time?
We are doing them one at a time.
Okay, so we're on 83 now?
We are on 83 now. And so I want to give the opportunity for a motion for continuance.
I'd like to make a motion to continue this to the June 6th meeting.
Thank you.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Could we have a roll call vote for continuing Resolution 83 till June 6th?
Councilor Doyle.
No.
Councilor Guth.
Yes.
Councilor Hauenstein.
Yes.
Councilor Rose.
Yes.
Mayor Tory.
Yes. Resolution number 84, this is the additional design and planning services for the Lumberyard Affordable Housing Development Project. Obviously, if you've read your memos, you understand the scope of work and the contract that is here. Chris, is there anything else that we should know about this if there was a motion for continuance of Resolution 84 to June 6th?
This resolution does contain scope of work related to Part 2 of the entitlements planning process. A lot of that work will likely be done as a result of what gets put in place on June 6th, so I don't think it would be catastrophic as far as getting from here to June 6th and through June 6th. But if we get continued at June 6th to June 20th or to a later date, we could end up without the services that we need.
Thank you for that. That's very clear. I appreciate that. Ward.
Yeah, I support 84 moving forward with that at this point. Cushing Terrell has been a really fantastic partner through this whole process, and I want to I want to continue working with them, and I want to take any chances of sending a wrong message to them, because I've been most appreciative of the quality of work that they've presented and worked with us on. So I'd like to move that we adopt Resolution 84.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion. My discussion on this is that you are potentially signing a contract for work that may change in scope in 2 weeks. So I agree with your sentiments about this company being the applicant's preferred vendor, 100%.
It's a $1.4 million.
But I'm gonna have to support this at June 6th. So there's a motion and a second for Resolution 84 at this time. I won't support it. Other further discussion? Could we have a roll call vote, please, for resolution number 84?
Councilor Doyle.
To be clear.
Correct.
Pardon? Somebody can move to continue it. Councilor Doyle.
Yes.
Councilor Guth.
No.
Councilor Howenstein.
Yes.
Councilor Rose.
No.
Mayor Tory.
No.
That does fail, but if somebody wishes to continue 84, you certainly can do that.
Thank you. I'll make a motion to continue resolution number 84 until June 6th.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Could we have a roll call vote for continuance of resolution number 84 to June 6th, please?
Councilor Doyle.
Yes.
Councilor Guth.
Yes.
Councilor Howenstein.
Yes.
Councilor Rose.
Yes.
Mayor Tory.
Yes. All right. Thank you, guys.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for adjournment. Any further discussion? Could we have a roll call vote for adjournment, please?
Councilor Doyle.
Yes.
Councilor Guth.
Yes.
Councilor Howenstein.
Yes.
Councilor Rose.
Yes.
Mayor Tory.
I'm a yes.
Cole's gonna take
Thank you, guys. As always, we want to thank Grassroots. And for everybody that was attending and watching and participating in tonight's meeting, thank you guys so much. We are going to not have meetings Memorial Day and the Tuesday following because it is a 5th Tuesday. We thank you all so much. Something like that, right?